Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to today's live stream from Matt to Residence. I'd like to say hello to everybody out there, all the residency applicants for the 2021 through 2022 application cycle, those who are listening who have already applied and already matched into residency. If you're tuning in, welcome. And for all those future residency applicants out there, hello. My name is Zeph. I am the Chief Residency Advisor for Match Resident, and I'm joined here today by Tiffany, our Director of Communications. So hello and welcome.
Hello, everybody. Like Zeph said, I want to welcome everybody to our first YouTube Live, and we're excited to talk with everybody who's involved in the match and residency and even before in med school. So as Zeph said, I'm Tiffany, and I'm the Director of Communications with Match a Resident, and really looking forward to this conversation. So let's get things started, I think, by talking about one of the new items that was part of the Match 21-22 cycle, and that is the Supplemental Application, which was released not too long before the September 29th program application opening date. So what did we think about that, Seth?
Yeah, so this was a very interesting aspect of the application cycle this year, which took a lot of applicants off guard. It took program directors off guard. We had multiple interviews with different program directors regarding the supplemental application. And there's some, differing opinions about what applicants should do with it, whether it's helpful or not. But the really big thing to take away from this for me is that the application is changing. And the official services are trying to do more to get better insight into applicants. And we see this through the supplemental application being developed and implemented this year. And I would say that step one, going to pass fail, is another implication of the official services wanting residency programs to focus more on the personal aspects of applicants rather than just test scores. So we got a lot of concerned people coming through Match a Resident and residency experts, where we actually provided editing for the supplemental applications, because people really didn't know how to utilize the sections, what to include, what should they not include, should they include geographic preferencing, or which programs should they signal. And to me, I believe that this year is really a year for learning. I believe that a lot of people were able to leverage the supplemental application, but we're really going to have to wait to see what program directors thought of it. How did they use the supplemental application when reviewing applicants? Did they review applicants who signaled their programs first, or was that a secondary measure once they actually started the interview season? So there's so many different aspects of the supplemental application. And I think it's going to be very intriguing to hear more in depth from program directors once they get a break from all the residency interviews, which are happening right now, to really hear their perspective and understand what they thought of the supplemental application, because it's most likely going to be here again next year. And it is interview season now. And last year was our first year of basically all virtual interviews. And we have another season of all virtual interviews, essentially, or almost all. And so what is next year looking like for us, Tiffany? Do you have any ideas about interview season for next year?
Yeah, and that's actually one of the most common inquiries that I've been getting lately, from people who are seeing what's happening during this match cycle and planning on participating next year is, are we still going to be doing virtual interviews, or are things going to shift back to more in-person interviews? And the resounding answer from the program community seems to be that virtual interviews are here to stay. Some programs may choose to do in-person interviews with people who are local, but by and large, it seems like virtual interviews are going to continue to play a major role in the residency interview process. So this is actually not bad news. For some people, they seem disappointed by this, but the reality is a virtual interview gives you a lot of control over your setting, your background, your ability to prepare. So it's a really good thing, especially knowing in advance, if you're applying next season, you can start brushing up on your virtual interview skills right now. The more that you can get in front of the camera and practice speaking, the better prepared you're going to be. So I encourage everybody to think positively about what seems to be a lasting change and think about all of the ways that you can set yourself up for success when it's your turn to sit for the interviews.
Yeah, exactly. And there's some cons to not having in-person interviews, but there are so many benefits. Like you said, the just the expense alone of going to interviews is enormous. And for people who aren't even in the country, they're applying from out of country, it makes the interview season that much more difficult. But having virtual interview options makes it so that you can take more interviews, that the expense is a fraction of what it would have been if you had to travel to all these programs. And we're seeing that residency programs are really going out of their way to make their program visible, having open houses, basically their making as much known about their program as they can to help entice people to come to it. Because at the end of the day, they have to advertise and they have to want to make people feel comfortable in that program. And so we're seeing a
Yeah.
lot of effort on their part as well.
Yeah, that's something that I have seen a lot of discussion about just in the interview feedback that we have in Metro Resident. Programs really are putting together really phenomenal tours and introductions and videos about their programs so you can learn a lot during the interview and you can meet all the residents. So I think a common misconception is that your virtual interview is going to be almost what you see here, just you and the program director, and that's it. But that's not usually the case. They're conducting larger group interviews where you and the other applicants have a chance to chat, sometimes with the chief resident or the group of residents. They're doing walking tours around the actual units within the hospitals. And something else I thought was really kind of neat because it's really trying to promote that social aspect of the interview is that some programs are sending out like Grubhub gift cards so that you can order in food. And there's actually a meal during the virtual interview. Everybody is enjoying a meal virtually at the same time. And while, of course, that could make for some interesting considerations about our table manners and eating on camera, it's a really nice touch. It's great to be able to have that relaxed, more casual atmosphere when you're meeting people for the first time.
Right. So you mentioned interview feedback. Can you tell us a little bit more about that and what exactly that is?
Sure. So in Metro Residence system, we have customized program lists, and basically we have data on every program that is an ACGME program. And for people who have the list, you have the opportunity, once you have an interview, to leave feedback about that interview experience. And that can range from a very detailed feedback where you might describe exactly who you interviewed with, how long you interviewed with them, what types of questions were asked, and even the impression that you were left with overall by the program. Sometimes the interview feedbacks are a little bit shorter and more concise. So it really ranges. And why it's really excellent is because if you are invited for an interview at a certain program, you can gain this very unique insight about what that interview process is going to be like. So you're going to know if the first thing is a meet and greet with the residents or if the first thing is a one-on-one with the program director. You're going to know if the interview, I saw one today that went from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m., so literally an all-day event versus a 1-hour event. So you get that unique insight and it helps you prepare. It helps you be a little bit more relaxed because you know what to expect instead of everything being a surprise at the last minute. So again, that's interview feedback and it's exclusive in Metro Resident, and it's a really, really helpful feature to help you prepare.
So it's basically testimonials almost about their experience from the interview. So the members of Match Residents who have, or not members sometimes, they have interviews at these programs and then they leave basically a little blurb about what it was like, and like a rating for their experience. And I think it's
Yeah.
so interesting to see that some programs consistently get high ratings, 5 out of 5 stars or 4 out of 5 stars, and really positive feedback. And some of the programs consistently get negative ratings. And that really goes to show you that people have a consistent experience from
Yeah.
that program. And it goes to show you that you can really pick up on what a program might be like, whether that's in person or virtual. But what are some
Yeah.
other ways that you can prepare for virtual interview experiences?
Well, there's two very important things. And the first one is your virtual background. So we talk
Mhm.
about this a lot in our interview prep series on YouTube in terms of making that first impression. And it happens before you open your mouth and start speaking. It's the visual that your viewer is seeing. So this is a good example, what Zeph and I have going on right now. Zeph is a really good example of a very plain background. He's just got a white or an off-white wall behind him, and there's nothing distracting, and that can be a very positive thing. So if that's something that you feel comfortable with and you have that type of space in your interview area in your home, then you can go that way, and that's a safe, clean bet. On the other hand, you can see in my background, there are several different items. I would not say this is an ideal setup for a residency interview. However, you can choose to have some items of interest in your background. So, for instance, I'm sitting in front of a piano, and if I were a very good piano player, which I'm not, that could be a smart decision because maybe the program director is also a piano enthusiast and they might ask you if you play and even ask you to share a piece. So that adding an item of interest in the background can work out in your favor and kind of steer the interview in a more personal direction and allow you to share something. So you have those different options. Those are the good options. Of course, the things you want to avoid are messy backgrounds or live, or I'm reading the word live, noisy backgrounds, where it's possible that there'll be traffic noises or barking dogs or children or anything at all that's distracting. You need to make sure that you plan ahead so that your environment is very, very quiet during the interview, and consider your lighting, your camera angle, all of the things that make the visual aspect what it is. So you want to plan ahead and prepare. So all of that is number one. Number two, in terms of being prepared for your residency interview, and this is whether it's virtual or in person, is really knowing your content, right? You have got to be prepared to answer the most common residency questions and the ones that might throw you a little bit off base. So you have to do research and come up with those questions and then spend a lot of time preparing your answers so that you can deliver them conversationally.
Mhm. And so when you're practicing, is it something that you want to memorize every single answer to, the 10 most common questions that you can just repeat it verbatim every time? Or is it better to have notes and ideas about what are the main points that you want to hit for the answers? And, how do you prepare for those unexpected questions that you don't even know what they're going to be?
Yeah, so the ideal answer is actually a combination of both of those strategies. And if you think about, I'm sure most of us have seen a TED Talk where someone is on stage and they are delivering something in a very conversational manner. The way
Mhm.
that people prepare to have that kind of discussion that's really engaging and keeps people's attention is by starting out with notes and bullet points and maybe even a fully written out answer, and then practicing and practicing and practicing until it is not coming across as a memorized, paragraph, but instead your natural inflections, all of your natural tendencies are able to come through because you do know the information by heart. So you're not spending time thinking about what you're going to say. You're just saying it naturally. So in a nutshell, you cannot be over prepared. If you over prepare, that's a good thing because then you're going to be able to be conversational. It's the under prepared is actually when you might come across a little bit more robotic, or even worse, you'll be stumbling all over your words.
And so, how about those questions that you don't even know how to answer because they're just so random? And we get that a few times each year where it's just a completely off base question that's really designed to assess how you answer it more so than the actual answer itself. Does that make sense?
Yeah, of course, most people are going to encounter at least one oddball question during their interviews. And one of the best strategies, if you get a question that you are completely unprepared for, is to simply say, that's an interesting question. I would like to take a moment to think about it. And that's a completely acceptable strategy. And it can feel a little bit awkward because you're on camera, someone is, staring at you, waiting for you to answer. But most likely, the interviewer is going to say, absolutely, take your time. And they'll probably look down and maybe make a couple of notes to help you feel a little bit more comfortable. And it's okay for you to look down too, as you're trying to collect and gather your thoughts. So that's how you start, is you acknowledge the question is interesting, ask for a moment to gather your thoughts. And at the end of the day, you are going to have to come up with an answer. If you are struggling with that, the key is to keep it short and concise. Don't let yourself go on and on to try to fill the space.
Perfect. And we actually do have a question from a current viewer, and they say they were invited by a program for a second look after my interview. Is this a good sign, or is it just a normal procedure they do? And if you get invited for a second look, there's no reason to think it's not a good sign. They aren't obliged to do that for every single person that they interview, and they would truly only do that if they have some genuine interest in your candidacy. So I would personally consider that a very good sign for that specific program. And
Absolutely. I agree.
great. We have another little comment about not being live in Instagram right now, and that's absolutely true. We are just doing this live on YouTube currently, and you'll be able to tune in for more lives on YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn. We'll keep doing our Instagram lives, but we are doing the live on some different platforms as well. So just stay tuned and watch out for those. I do have a question for you, Tiffany. This is from
Sure.
Praise Austin. How are the compatibility scores for programs calculated in Match Your Resident? So what sorts of factors go into the compatibility scores?
Sure. So the compatibility score is really comprehensive. It's looking at your applicant criteria. So your step one, step two scores, your visa needs, if you have any. It's also going to take a look at the actual competitiveness and prestige of the program itself, and as well as your US clinical experience and your time since graduation. So it's taking into account all of your important applicant criteria and how it compares with the program's requirements and preferences, and then adding in the program and specialty competitiveness and prestige. So our algorithm takes all of that together and does what it does, and then it results in your compatibility score. And what's really great about the compatibility score is that not only are you getting a customized program list when you sign up for that with Match Your Resident, it's ordered in the top from most compatible to least compatible, from top to bottom. So it's very easy for you to take a look at your list, and you know that those programs at the top of your list with the highest numbers, starting with 100, are the best programs for you to focus on. Even once you start scrolling down and you get to the bottom of your list, this is a key question that I get. Every program on your list is one that you are compatible with. So a lower compatibility score does not mean that you're not compatible with the program. It just means you're less compatible than you are with the program with a higher score.
Mhm. So it's basically saying that you could apply to any of those programs on your customized list because you qualify for the minimum requirements. But it might be better, especially if you have 250 programs on your list and you're only trying to apply to 100, to focus on those with the higher compatibility scores. And we've been talking about interviews and now compatibility scores. And we have another really amazing feature called Interview Link. So can you tell us a little bit more about what Interview Link is and how that relates to somebody picking out which programs they might apply to?
Yeah, definitely. Interview Link is, I think, one of my favorite features about Match a Resident because you've got all these tools already on hand. You've got your compatibility scores, and you also have a range of additional filters that you can use to sort your list in the way that you want to. And probably the most important one of those filters is the Interview Link. So Interview Link is an indicator. So it's a label that's put on a program that indicates that an applicant like you, so someone with similar applicant criteria, has received an interview with that program in the past. Of course, if the program has interviewed someone like you in a previous cycle, it's more likely that they will choose to interview you during this cycle. So it's really kind of allows you to pick the the cream of the crop. So you've got your compatibility score, and if that number is high and the program is also labeled with interview link, that means that it is one of the top tier programs where you should consider applying.
Wonderful. Now, so we've talked about interview feedback, we've talked about interview link. We also have interview manager, which helps you actually keep track of all the interviews you're getting throughout the season in one easy place so that you can make sure that all of your interviews are available for you through your Match Resident account, and that you can leave specific notes for any of the interviews. And one of the most important things to do after your interviews, which people tend to wait until rank season to do this, but actually one of the most important things for very soon after your interview is to complete the rank assist survey. And that's also freely available through Match Resident. It's the rank assist tool. And basically what it is a proprietary survey which helps you analyze how strong or how high up a residency program should be on your rank order list. And we ask about your experiences in the interview. We talk about your actual strengths for that specific program, as well as your interest in the program. And we're taking all these different factors into account, which might otherwise be kind of confusing and convoluted to try to sort out in your mind without some sort of very precise analytical method to get a number. And you basically end up with a score out of 10 for every single program. And so those programs with the higher rank assist scores might want to be higher on your rank order list. And the reason it's so important to do that soon after your interview is because, believe it or not, we're not infallible beings and our memories are not perfect. And by the time February gets around, you might forget some of those key details and it won't be as fresh in your mind, and your emotional experience of the interview, which is important to integrate into your responses, will just have been lost at that point. So definitely remember to take the rank assist survey after your interviews.
Yeah, and I want to just reiterate that that's a completely free tool. So you can go to metroresident.com, sign up for a free account, and you're going to have access to Interview Manager and Rank Assist. You don't have to purchase anything in order to use those tools. So there's really no reason not to sign up and use those tools. They are really effective in helping you keep track of everything. And as Zach said, once rank season really comes, you're going to be very glad that you have a meaningful record of your interview experiences and not just a couple notes that you jotted down in a Word document or on a piece of paper. This is structured and it's really, really intentionally crafted to help you when rank season is here.
Right, exactly. And we do have many freely available tools and resources. And we also have some very important professional services that can be so helpful during the interview season. And one of those is interview prep. So can you tell us a little bit more about what interview prep is and how it works, Tiffany?
Definitely. Interview prep is our interview preparation service that we offer through Match a Resident, and it's a really neat tool. So the best part about interview prep, well, there's two best parts. The first part is that there's a huge bank of questions, all specific to residency interviews. So when you get this service, you're going to have access to the entire bank of questions instead of having to Google and look through a million different websites to figure out what are the most common questions. They're all going to be right there at your fingertips. The second amazing part of the interview prep service is that you can practice your responses to these residency interview questions, and you're going to practice them in the same environment that you're most likely to have your interview, which is virtually on screen. So the way that it works is that you record your response to any one of the questions from the question bank. And once your response is recorded, an AI tool goes in and it evaluates your response. And to be honest, initially, when I first looked around the service to see how it worked, I was a little bit skeptical. Like, how could an AI feedback be very valuable? But oh my goodness, it's extremely valuable. So there's 9 different metrics that the AI gives you feedback on. And some of those include your use of filler words. So saying and so and like, these are things that make it harder to pay attention to you when you're talking and can be distracting during the interview. So you're going to find out how many times you used those words, and how you can improve so that you can use them less during your actual interview. Another example of one of the AI metrics that you get feedback on is the length of pauses in between your sentences or your words, as well as your pace of speech. So that's not
Hmm.
something we really think about too often.
Yeah.
You may be a very slow speaker or a very fast speaker. And if you fall too far on one side or the other, the feedback is going to tell you where you're at. And again, offer you strategies on how to address that so you're better prepared.
Perfect.
Just quickly, some of the other features are that it gives you feedback on your eye contact with the camera, your
Hmm.
positioning and the lighting and the virtual background, and also your overall vocabulary. So it really is comprehensive, and the strategies to improve are amazing. And you can use that tool over and over and over to keep on practicing until you get scores that you like and you know that you are ready for the virtual interview.
And so you're basically recording practice answers from different question banks. There's also video and written lessons. What if I want to get feedback from, let's say, a mentor about my practice answers? Can I send them those videos to then get their feedback on?
Yeah, so there is an option if you upgrade from the basic to the premium package. You then have access to two additional services. And the first is weekly group coaching sessions. And those happen once a week. They're about an hour to 90 minutes long and they're live. So you're interacting with the coach as well as other residency applicants. And you have that opportunity to ask for questions and clarifications. And also, you are able to record and submit three of your responses. So you would want to choose those three either most important questions to you or the three most difficult questions for you to answer. And you will then get feedback from an interview coaching expert. So personalized feedback that goes even beyond what the AI feedback offers.
Wonderful. So there's written lessons, video lessons, there's practice answers with AI-based scoring, and you can get feedback from mentors on those answers, or you can get feedback from a professional residency interview coach, and also attend those weekly group sessions. And basically, what the idea is when you're going into your first interviews, or maybe even your second, third, fifth, 10th, everybody comes into them feeling differently. And those who come in feeling calm and comfortable and confident and prepared are going to fare much better because when you have a relaxed energy and you're able to just connect with the person that you're talking to without having to worry too much about how you're coming across because you didn't practice your pace of speech or not using filler words like and and you're looking away from the camera because you're not you haven't practiced looking at the camera instead of the person. There's so many things and it's just very helpful to make sure that you come in feeling 100% prepared. And on that note, I want to jump into a topic about for those people who haven't gotten their first interview invitations yet. And first off, it's very normal for your first interview invitation to not come out until late November, December, and possibly for some people, it might even be beyond that into January. Last year, people were getting interview invitations in February. So there is still time to get these invitations. But something that you can do if you have not gotten invitations yet, and even if you have, is to send very strongly written and tailored letters of interest to your top residency programs. So, a letter of interest is basically a letter to the program expressing very specific and explicit reasons as to why you're very interested in that particular program, and basically discussing all those attributes and maybe some of the special things that are happening at the program, and also talking a little bit about yourself and why you'd be a good fit. And so this is basically like a cover letter combined with a personal statement combined with a CV, but all condensed into about 200 to 500 words. And so cover letters or letters of interest can be extremely powerful tools for getting interest in your application. And if you can send them to your top 5 programs or 10 programs, if you have time, tailor a letter to your top 15 or 20 programs. But just be very sure that you are crafting it individually, and that you don't use just a template and copy and paste the mission and values from the residency program, but you're really going in depth as to the very specific reasons for your interest in that program. It could be research that's happening, specific outreach programs, educational tracks for residency, people that work in the residency. So many things that you can really talk about to help strengthen the credibility of the content and strengthen the credibility of your genuine interest rather than just coming off as generic and copy and paste. So that's something I would definitely remind everybody to do. And if you do need help with editing your letters of interest, your thank you letters, or later on your letters of intent, definitely check us out at residencyexperts.com. That's where we provide all our editing for the ARIS application, the supplemental application, and general letters of communication, including the letters of interest and the thank you letters. So can you tell us a little bit more about thank you letters and what the protocol is for submitting those, Tiffany?
Sure. So thank you letters are extremely important, and you want to, without question, send a thank you letter for every interview that you complete. And you should think about sending it somewhere in between, I would say, the 3 day to 7 day window after your interview. So it's not something that you're going to send an hour after you complete the interview. Give it a couple of days, maybe up to a week at the very long end. And you want to send the thank you letter to definitely the program director who you interviewed with and any other key people like the chief resident or the program coordinator. Ideally, you would send a thank you letter to each person who you interviewed with. However, if you interviewed, let's say, with a group of 10 residents, it might not be possible for you to create a genuine thank you letter for 10 residents who you only met very briefly in a group setting. In that case, you can send a thank you letter to the residents of that program as a group, just saying how much you enjoyed meeting them and seeing their camaraderie, and you really got a feel for what it was like to be part of the team. So there's a couple of different strategies that you have in terms of sending the individual thank you letters to the key players and a more group style thank you letter to a group of residents, or depending on what the individual interview was like, you might have a specific group besides residents who you wanted to send a thank you letter to.
Wonderful. So we actually have another follow-up question for the second look, which is, what's a good dress code for the second look after your first interview?
Yeah, always err on the side of professionalism and sophistication. You are not going to be taken the wrong way or leave a bad impression if you are overdressed. So I would say, however you dressed for the first interview, you should dress very similarly for the second look. They obviously liked you and want to spend a little bit more time with you. That's why they've invited you for a second look. So you want to keep that image and that impression consistent and the same throughout your second look as it was in the first interview.
Mhm. Wonderful. So what is coming up for us? We just got through our first holiday break and we have December coming up. What should people be doing right now, or what should they be preparing for come January and February?
Yeah, I mean, we are still right smack in the middle of interview season. So everybody should be, number one, staying positive about interview season. Even if you have not, as Zeph said, received an interview invitation yet, that does not rule out a possibility of getting one and your possibility of matching. So stay positive, and instead of focusing on when that interview invite will come, or even if you've had two or three and now it's kind of slow, there very well could be more. You want to focus on A, staying positive, and B, being prepared. Don't wait until you get an interview invitation to start preparing for the interview. That would be a colossal mistake, especially because you don't know what the time frame is going to be. Once you get that interview invite, you may have 48 hours to prepare. And if you've been kind of moping around and not preparing since you didn't have an early invite, you will be caught off guard, and there's no way that you can get ready in 48 hours. So right now and throughout the rest of interview season, prepare. Whatever tool you use to do that is your choice. Of course, we really love our interview prep service, but you can prepare however best suits you, but that's what you should be focused on right now.
Mhm. Yeah, exactly. So making sure that you keep a positive mental attitude, that you're staying prepared and you're doing what it takes to make sure that when those interviews do come, that you are absolutely ready for them and that you come in feeling extremely comfortable and confident. And I want to touch on one more major topic. And again, it's just around the corner. And that is the transition from pass fail, or from step one to being the 3-digit to the pass fail score. And obviously, that's going to be changing so many things for people. So, what are some of the common questions that we're getting about step one going pass fail?
Yeah, I would say the most common question that's being asked is, how is this going to affect me when I apply next season? So for the 2022-23 match, if I apply with pass fail, am I going to be at a disadvantage? Or if I apply with a lower step one score, am I going to be at a disadvantage? Similarly, if I have a really high step one score, is that going to matter anymore next season? And of course, the absolute truth is that we don't know until it happens, and there's no way to necessarily predict exactly how programs at large or individual programs are going to respond to the change. So much like the supplemental application, once we enter into that next cycle with the pass fail, we're going to be seeing how it plays out before our eyes. That being said, there are some, I think, fair assumptions that we can make. And we do know that next cycle, it's going to be a pretty mixed bag, where a lot of people will apply with a pass fail score, and a lot of people will still be applying with a numerical score. And we are hopeful that programs are going to follow this initiative the way that it was intended, which is to encourage programs to stop using such strict cutoffs for step one in order to make decisions. So the idea is that programs should be looking more holistically at the applications and looking at more components than just that step one score. So that's what we're hopeful is going to happen, is that programs will start to look at research experience, volunteer experience, the quality of your US clinical experience and hands-on work with patients, and your letters of recommendation. So that is what we're hopeful will happen, and there's no reason to think that it won't. So to more directly answer the questions, we don't think that anyone's going to be at a disadvantage because of the change. We think that it's going to hopefully happen the way that it was intended with this change, with programs looking at applications holistically.
Hmm. So, what if people are wondering whether or not they should take it before or after?
Yeah, so that's a very personal decision, obviously. There's a couple of different things to consider. Since we don't know exactly how programs are going to process the change, you do want to consider what your predicted score is. So in your USMLE prep, if your predicted scores are coming back on the lower end of things, and whether that's the lower end in general or the lower end for the specific specialty, whatever the average is in that specialty, then you might want to seriously consider waiting until it's pass fail, so that you rule out having a score that could impact you negatively, which is how it has been in past seasons with the step one score. On the other hand, if your predicted scores are coming back high and you're very happy with them, it is still possible that programs are going to use numerical scores as an indicator of who they want to keep on the list for potentially interviewing. So in that case, you would want to consider taking it before January 26th, so that you could lock in that number and see if it is able to help you for next cycle.
Yeah, and that's something I want to point out as well, is that we're going to be able to provide you with in-depth and precise information about how programs are going to be treating step one and step two, because the way that we get our minimum requirements to create these customized lists in the first place is to contact every single program over the phone and have an in-depth conversation with the program coordinator or another administrative member of the residency, or sometimes even the program director, and really find out what their criteria are. Are their cutoffs flexible, or are they strict? Do they make exceptions to certain things, like looking for 5 years or less since graduation, unless you've had direct hands-on US clinical experience in the last year, for example? And basically asking programs how they're going to treat step one specifically. And it's going to be so essential to know what programs are hoping to see and maybe how they're going to be treating it as well. So definitely look out for that information starting around July to August next cycle. And we're just going to have to see when the applications are actually going to go out as well. Do we have any bets, Tiffany? Is it going to be September 29th or the 15th, or they're going to go back to October 21st? What's
Well,
your
we don't know. We don't know.
no idea?
We think it's unlikely that it's going to shift dramatically, say more than 2 to 3 weeks in either direction. It's been very consistent for many years within that range of dates. So we'll likely see something right in that pocket of the middle of September to the middle of October, possibly the later end of October. But we won't know until we know. I do want to add one other thing because another common question I've gotten from applicants who are going to be applying next cycle is, will match a resident system be updated to accommodate the change to pass fail? And the answer is, as Zeph said, yes. Obviously, when we contact programs for our annual update, we're going to be talking with programs about how they're going to process that change and review applications. And we are also working on modifying the system itself so that if you are a candidate who has taken the exam after pass fail, you'll be able to enter in your applicant criteria accordingly. And if you're an applicant with a score, you'll also be able to enter in your criteria accordingly. So, of course, we are all things residency and match application. We are on top of and working really hard to make sure that next cycle it's a very smooth process for anybody who wants to take advantage of our program research.
Yeah, and for those who may or may not be aware, we released MAR 3.0 or Match Resident 3.0 this season, and there are plenty of new updates compared to last year, like our funneled organizational system, which allows you
Yeah.
to better utilize your customized list to really save your top programs and then mark them as applying and then mark them as interviewing, put them on your interview manager calendar quickly and easily, take the rank assist survey, all integrated into one place. And we are going to be releasing even more updates to MAR 3.0 in the coming months and for next season especially. So definitely be on the lookout for those as well. And as we've been talking about, there's been so many changes, and it's good to see this evolution. And we're here to change with these differences from year to year. And that really started out with COVID coming in, moving everything to virtual, for example. And now we have changes in the testing results. Step one going to pass fail, and it's so important to keep yourself aware of what's going on and to keep informed by, staying in tune with media that is covering these types of things. And of course, catching all of Match Residents live events where we're here to discuss them and answer your questions. If you have any last minute questions for us, please do leave them in the comments. We'll be more than happy to answer them here in the last couple minutes. But this season has been exciting and interesting, as they all are. And from the supplemental application to the interview season, there's so much going on. Again, if you have not already begun, there is interview prep services available through Match a Resident. Make sure that you're looking at the interview feedback through your Match a Resident account, and using that rank assist tool early on after the interviews, so that when it comes time to the rank order list, you're not going in all directions and worried about how you should rank programs. And we're going to be talking more about letters of intent come December and January and February. So be sure to stay in tune for that. Again, if you need help with your letters of interest or thank you letters, if you'd like editing assistance, go to residencyexperts.com, and we'll be more than happy to help make sure that those are optimized, perfected, and professional. So do you have any last thoughts or tips, pieces of advice for us, Tiffany? And we'll try to catch any last minute questions here.
Yeah, just actually three important dates for everybody to keep in mind. So the first one coming up is December the 15th, which is unbelievably just about 2 weeks away. You need to make sure that you have applied. If you're an IMG, you need to make sure that you have applied to your pathway by December 15th of 2021. So that's, like I said, just about 2 weeks away. The next date after that is December the 31st. And that date marks the last day that you can take the OET in order to be able to have the ECFMG certify that you are in fact eligible for the match. The last date is January the 31st of 2022, which is also right around the corner. And that is the last date that you can register with the NRMP and avoid a late fee. So you can register after that, but you'll be charged an extra $50. And that's an important one. We'll keep highlighting that in the weeks and months to come, because many applicants don't realize that NRMP registration is not the same as ERIS application. It's a completely separate registration. So again, that date is January the 31st.
Wonderful. Yeah, so absolutely keep those dates in mind. We just had another question pop in, which is any tips on how I should be ranking my programs? Um, so we've definitely touched on this here. Tiffany, do you want to summarize the Rank Assist tool again for us?
Yeah, definitely. So first, I want to directly answer the question, tips for how to rank programs. And I'm actually working on preparing a video that's all about how the rank order list works, because that's a pretty complex topic that a lot of people struggle to understand. But the simple answer is you should prepare your rank order list from top to bottom by the programs that you are most interested in attending. It's not as complicated as many people think it is. There's not necessarily some type of tricky strategy that you can use to more ensure that you'll rank. Rank the program you want to go to most at the top of your list. The algorithm favors you as the applicant, so that is what makes the most sense. And then going down the list, you're just ranking them, the program you'd like to go to second most, third most. That should be your strategy. In order to figure out what program you want to go to most, second most and third most, that's where you can take advantage of our free tool, Rank Assist, which you can get just by going to matcharesident.com, signing up for a free account. And what that does is it's a very well-structured series of questions and rankings that allows you to reflect on your interview experience, ideally right after you have the interview. And it takes all of that input that you give it, and it produces a score out of 10 to let you know that either this program, maybe it's a 9.5 or an 8.7. So that's pretty high. It means that it was a good interview. It means that you think positively about it. On the other hand, you might think it was a great experience, but after answering all the questions, you could get a number back like 6.5. And that might make you think a little bit more about the experience and give more honest insight into whether or not you really want to be a part of that program.
So the rank order list at its core is a preference list. It's where
Yes.
do I want to go? And people, it's so interesting to get questions like people ask, should they rank their top choice number one? And the answer is yes, absolutely. I
Yes.
mean, if you interviewed there and that's your number one choice, rank them number one. Uh,
Yes.
there's no reason to not rank your top choice as your number one choice. Um, and so that would be one piece of advice. But keep in mind, it's a preference list. But for those people who have maybe 10 interviews, they might know their top two or three, and they might know their bottom three, but the ones in the middle might be a little bit more convoluted, and they need more of like a numeric guide to say, okay, what's the most logical way to order these programs? And that's where the Rank Assist tool can come especially in handy, because it gives a 6.7, 7.1, and an 8.2 for those three programs that you really weren't sure about. So it's like, okay, that clears things up. Now I know how to rank those programs a little bit more rationally. And of course, as we mentioned, Rank Assist is a free tool. So anybody with a registered account through Match a Resident is more than welcome to use the Rank Assist survey to help figure out their rank order list.
Yeah, and I do want to include one other question that I've been receiving lately in terms of creating a rank order list. And that question is, do I have to rank every program that I interview with? And the answer
Mhm.
is no. You don't have to rank any programs if you don't want to. You can rank just one program. However, the best advice is that you should rank every program that you interview with that you could actually see yourself going to. If you interview with a program and you are not interested in spending 4 to 7 years of your life with as a part of that program, you should not rank them because it is possible that you could match with any program on your list, even the very last one that you rank. And once you match, that is a contract. So backing out of a match or changing your mind 6 months in, these are all very, very bad things. It's very difficult to recover from going back on a match. So don't rank a program that you don't want to go to. Otherwise, rank everyone that you interview in.
Exactly. Yeah, that's very important to remember. If you really don't want to go to a program, do not include it on your list because you don't want to end up there and you don't want to have to withdraw from the binding contract, which is what you are agreeing to when you're signing up with the NRMP.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, I believe that is all the questions at the moment. If any last ones pop in here, we'll be sure to get to them. But in the meantime, if anybody has any further questions, they can email us at support@matcharesident.com. Or if you'd like to leave a comment on any of our videos talking about all the important things that are happening right now or things that you should be doing, like interview preparation, getting your letters of interest sent, your thank you letters written. Make sure that you're taking those steps to optimize your match. And I believe that is all the questions we have for the moment. So I really want to thank everybody who's tuned in and anybody who's watching this later on. We really appreciate your time and attention, and we're here to help and support you and try to help make sure that you are able to accomplish your dreams. And so, again, reach out to us if you have any other questions, comments. We're here for you. And thank you, Tiffany, for being a part of this conversation and doing what you do. You help field so many questions, and it's amazing. And I'm sure everybody is just so rewarded by the wisdom you're able to share. So again, Tiffany is our Director of Communications. I'm Zeph. I'm the Chief Residency Advisor with Match Resident, and it's been an absolute pleasure. So thank you, Tiffany. I'm looking forward to our
Yes.
next live.
Pleasure is all mine. And thank you so much. We'll talk to everybody next time.
All right. Sounds like a plan. Bye for now, everybody.
Bye.